Bachelor Life. Hi, Michael. How was your flight?
Excellent. No lift, but what a joy to fly your Zamongo. Thank you again for entrusting her to me.
Most welcome. It's nice to have one of my kids show interest in flying. I don't blame them, though. There's little romance in aviation now. Old hat. Life's all happening on the internet.
Well, the joy of soaring is new to me, and I am thankful for the opportunity. I wish you would fly with me.
I'll spare you my backseat driving until you get your glider rating and more solo time. I'll bet Georgie will be happy to fly with you too, at least until the knot is tied.
Cynical to the core.
Just vast experience. There's not one in a million women genuinely interested in flying or sailing. Just as well, I think, we need those spaces to ourselves. Speaking of spousal experiences, shall we return to the tale at hand?
Sure, where we left off, you still hadn't yet actually split up with Orly. Is there more to say?
Not much. Orly's half-brother Jeremy came to help with the two-car drive east. Orly and I hugged goodbye, the kids waved back, and they drove off. That was it. I guess we were all drained of emotion and relieved that it was over. 20 years done and gone without a whimper. I turned in the keys to the house, drove to the BOQ, and called Nazira with the news.
How could you be ready to jump into another marriage so quickly?
Good question, but didn't I answer it already? I had married your mother and Orly because of pregnancy. My fault too, of course, just not my choice. Nazira was my crusade. Despite the odds against, I was committed. After all, there were greater risks to come. With many risks from her view as well, bless her heart, she couldn't be asked to wait forever. Nazira was also committed, but I felt it would be best to introduce her to the USA as a tourist if she could get a visa.
Did Nazira want that?
She was okay with it. Even if it didn't work out for us, she would at least be out of Hong Kong and in the USA for keeps if she wished.
Did you believe that was part of her motivation?
Of course, Nazira was nothing if not frank in saying that her future prospects in Hong Kong were nil past her 20s. Plus, the British lease was running out, and it was certain that China would not renew it. No one expected that the open, free-port capitalism and democratic lifestyle would continue under China's rule. At worst, I was a godsend for her and her parents, as was she a godsend for me, or Jean sent.
Beyond coincidence, you think?
In looking back, absolutely, and very much consistent with later providential events. As Jean said, she could influence my future, but I could change it. In fact, there were several other future-changing opportunities in celebrating my current bachelorhood. First, when I called my idol Dorothy with the news, she shocked me by asking me to come to Pensacola and rescue her from her marriage to Adrian.
Hold on, Captain. Update me on Dorothy.
After her husband George split, Dorothy returned to Pensacola with her baby Anne and made good on her pledge to marry the most eligible man about town and bore him Adrian III.
How could she have seriously asked you to rescue her?
I didn't believe she was serious, except that Dorothy was very frank. She told Aurelie several times over the years that she intended to steal me away from her, but we didn't take her seriously, though Aurelie did know of my admiration. I had not seen Dorothy other than the time I flew a Demon to Pensacola. There was no reason to think she was attracted to me, so I discounted Dorothy's request as nothing more than expressing her frustration stemming from the loveless nature of her marriage of convenience. In any event, I had no wish to risk becoming involved in another's unhappy marriage, so I passed.
I should hope so. Was that the last of Dorothy in your life?
Lord, no, not by a long shot. Our next encounter was 10 years later, So let's try not to review our history each time Dorothy re-enters my tale.
So what other of Jean's opportunities presented themselves?
For unexplained reasons, the U.S. Embassy in Hong Kong refused to issue a visitor's visa to Nazira, perhaps because of her juvenile detention record or her Pakistani passport issued in Peking. Also, there was official interest in hampering GLs from importing Asian war brides. So I enlisted the services of an immigration attorney in Hawaii who had worked in the Hong Kong U.S. Embassy for 15 years. So this was going to slow things down. Meanwhile, my social life consisted of happy hours at the gloomy NAS Lemoore Officers Club. I had been detached from VA 27, which was deployed again and stashed as an A7 flight instructor and maintenance officer in VA 122, pending promotion to commander and assignment as executive officer to VA 146, so there was time to get into trouble. One afternoon at the club, I was approached by the wife of one of my deployed squadron mates, who asked me to be the fourth in their bridge game. My bridge experience was limited to the Wild West variations we played at sea, but I was still dummy candidate, so I reluctantly agreed. When the game adjourned for dinner, there was no graceful way for me to leave, nor was there a polite way to decline the wife's invitation to dance to a jukebox tune. When she asked me, "Would you mind?" there was no doubt what she meant.
So that's what life back home was like for the wives you guys left behind?
Apparently, news to naive me. So my reaction was to say that I had just come out of a failed marriage and didn't wish to be involved in someone else's. She persisted, however, and I relented. She gave me directions to her house and told me to come by at 10. On the drive there, I chickened out and pulled off to a payphone at a quiet intersection to call it off. Incredibly, at that moment, two cars crashed into each other at the intersection. There didn't appear to be injuries, but of course I had to attend to the scene and said I wouldn't be coming.
Another amazing coincidence, courtesy of Jean?
No doubt, though it didn't occur to me. I simply felt relieved.
Why didn't you connect the dots with Jean's car crash message intervention?
I hadn't yet realized that the consequences of the Ouija board communication with Jean would extend beyond then in such direct and dramatic ways.
Okay, what was the other opportunity?
I don't remember exactly how it came up, but the fallout from my trips to Albuquerque and your mother's advances led me to ask her to visit me in California.
I remember that well. I was surprised and hurt that you two pretty much ignored me in pursuing your carnal lust.
Guilty as charged, Judge Michael. I was as surprised as you. But this was an opportunity for me to fulfill lingering vengeance against the hateful woman who, for no rational justification, had done her best to trash my life.
14 years later? Good grief. Had you really harbored such a grudge for so long?
Yes, I did, Michael. Emma did everything possible to maintain her attacks for years after our divorce. On the other hand, I'll admit that Emma remained a very attractive woman to me, and our physical relationship had been so brief that we had not gotten our money's worth. So, truth be told, when I invited her to come to Lemoore, and she said she would not come unless there might be a chance for us, I was not entirely dishonest in saying I would allow for that.
You may not have considered my feelings of hopeful anticipation that I might finally have a father in my life.
Oh no, Michael, you're not going to lay a guilt trip on me now, when you know as well as I do that your mother engineered the entire event. Do you think she was considering your feelings?
Okay, quite right. Sorry, but you were an easy target of blame from the way Mother saw it all.
From the way she said she saw it, you mean? Never mind the truth. It's easy for women like Emma and Aurelie to ever after play the victim's part of an abandoned mother to her kids when the father cannot defend himself in absentia. I certainly did not intend to do something everlastingly stupid to myself in a futile effort for your sake. Reading between the lines in what I know of you, you know very well what a lost cause that would have been. So which first, the good part or the bad about her visit?
Let's try good for a change of pace.
It may make you uncomfortable to hear it, but good it was. We had an absolute ball, enjoying the best of the 60s California social revolution. We removed the top from my 59 Austin Healey 106 and roared through the 90-mile lonely two-lane mountain road to Morro Bay with our hair waving in the breeze, removing every stitch of clothes on the way. One shocked truck driver passing us nearly went off the road. Then dinner at a waterfront fisherman's cafe with Joan Baez on the jukebox, providentially singing Bob Dylan's "Love is Just a Four-Letter Word," followed by a night of lust in the dunes at the isolated beach. Next, San Francisco for 3 days, with all the hippie rock and roll abandon it offered. I was amazed how well Emma fit right into the lifestyle, bless her heart.
Sounds ideal. What went wrong?
Too much, too soon, and too late. Negative frictions could not be erased with a brief encounter. Though we kept up a congenial front and got through the visit, the underlying bitterness proved there was no question of a future together for us, as indeed there never was. So after putting her on her plane home, I wrote a final letter saying so. Her response was a simple agreement: I'm okay. That was our final written communication.
Were you glad to have evened the score somewhat?
No, but I was glad that we had buried some of our past. I believe she felt the same. Now, with Aurelie, Dorothy, and Emma resolved, I was in positive spirits to face the future with Nazira. However, there was one more opportunity I nearly forgot.
Not another lady in your life.
Not directly. It was more about my pal, Ed Fitch, who was living at the BOQ too, since he and Pat had divorced. I bumped into him after breakfast when he was on his way to fly. His harried and fatigued appearance was explained by the fact that he was entertaining 3 ladies in town at the same time without either knowing about the other. Pat X and his kids were staying with Ed's parents, who were trying to resurrect the marriage. The 2 other ladies, a nurse from San Francisco staying at a nearby motel, plus Gloria, a PhD oceanographer, nymphomaniac, who was at that moment in his BOQ room. Keeping up with the 3 of them had been quite hard on Ed in his car. So he suggested that if I went to his room and introduced myself, Gloria would probably welcome me to his bed and give him a break.
Good grief, you went?
Hell no, but I joined them for dinner. Crowded between Ed and me in the front seat of his car, Gloria explained what a lousy lover Ed was when she met him in Hawaii, and then detailed the improvements she had made. Since Gloria re-enters this tale several times, it's worth reviewing how they met. When Ed was transferred to Hawaii, Pat refused to go, supposedly because of their fancy La Jolla home and the kids' school, as well as Pat's modeling career and social ambitions. But Ed refused to take no for an answer, and Pat finally joined Ed for a visit in his high-rise apartment. One night after his usual alcohol overindulgence and sitting on the john, Ed saw an open letter in the trash can, which was a love letter to Pat from an old friend of Ed's in La Jolla. It was obvious that their affair was nothing new, except to Ed. Still sitting on the john, Ed screamed to Pat and confronted her with the letter. When Pat admitted to the affair, Ed demanded that Pat bring him his .38 pistol, which she did. Still sitting on the john, Ed declared he was going to blow his brains out. According to Ed, Pat simply closed the bathroom door and flew home to La Jolla.
Well, that has to be an effective way to dilute the dramatic effect of someone committing suicide.
Ed's life was a series of colorful events, so Pat's action was appropriate. Though understandably shocked and depressed, Ed managed to recover. One evening, as he contemplated a leap from his high-rise apartment balcony, he noted a lovely lady on a balcony below him. Rather than put on an aerial display for her, he struck up a conversation, and the rest was history. It was Gloria.
Did she follow him home from Hawaii?
Not exactly. Ed explained that Gloria was a PhD oceanographer at Scripps Institute in La Jolla, temporarily assigned to a project in Hawaii, and since returned to California, and was just visiting Ed for the weekend. Pat and the nurse were surprises. Nevertheless, Ed pulled it off somehow without repercussions. Not too long afterward, they were married.
What a combination, a nymphomaniac and a recently divorced fighter pilot about to redeploy to Vietnam. Surely he would have many more important issues to contemplate than getting shot down. But then you and Ed were pretty much alike, weren't you, Captain?
You could say that, Mike. There I was, a 36-year-old, divorced, battle-weary aviator, facing 2 more deployments, engaged to an 18-year-old Hong Kong jailbird bar owner actress. What were the odds?
Well, you're still alive and kicking, so as they say, don't argue with success. What's next?
Let's stop here and resume after dinner, okay?
Suits me, Captain.